Hi, welcome back to Betty. I'm your host, Cynthia Thompson. I want to ask you all a question out there. Have you ever wondered, do we have any single ministers in the churches today? Believe it or not, there are a lot more out there than you know of. My guest is a single black minister here in the church, here in the Charlotte area, and he's going to discuss the struggles and the challenges he has had being a single minister. Well, I said a mouthful, didn't I?
You did.
Thank you for joining me, Alvin. And before we get started talking about all that stuff, because this is a very serious topic, tell us just a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, I'm originally from Chadbourn, North Carolina, which is on the southeast coast of North Carolina, near Myrtle Beach. So if you drive down 74 East about 2.5 hours, you'll run into Chadbourn. I came to Charlotte in 2008 to take a job with the city of Charlotte, where I'm currently employed. I'm an assistant to the city manager. I'm responsible for citizen relations. So anybody who has any problem with any city service, if it's not resolved at the call center, it usually comes to my desk for resolution. So you can imagine that is a big job.
And the kind of calls you get too.
Oh boy, we can talk for days about that. I was reared in the church, in the Missionary Baptist Church, and I am an ordained minister. I've been preaching now for about 7 years.
So how did you know the ministry was supposed to be a part of your life?
I was told that as a young child in my home church in Chadbourn, the pastor called for one of the deacons to come up and pray. None of the deacons stood up.
What?
And since I don't remember it, but I was told that at the tender age of 5 years old,
Get out of
I
here.
stood up and said, I'll pray. And I said a short prayer. And from that time and from growing up, people always told me, you have the mark of a preacher. You're going to go into ministry, but I never believed it. I tried to stray away from it. And so it finally happened in 2006.
So you were kind of like that biblical story about Jonah and the whale. You just said, no, not me. I'm not doing it. But
I won't say I was adamant as Jonah about running from it. It's just that as I focused on school, as I focused on education and just growing up and being a child, I just never thought about it. But I did what I was supposed to do in the church. The church was very big in my family, and I attended on a regular basis, participated, and so the call just came upon my life despite whatever I did to not think about it or stray away from it.
Now, as I said in our opening, we're going to talk about the challenges of you being a single minister in the church and how you handle it. Now, I want to ask you just a couple of things.
Okay.
And I want you to respond just the first thing that comes on the top of your head, okay?
Okay.
So as a single minister, do you think that people see you as a complete minister in the church since you are single?
I think most people, especially most of our senior saints, would see me as incomplete. And here is why. In Genesis 2:18, the scripture says it's not good for the man to be alone.
Right.
People have taken that to mean that everybody in the church should be married. But if you look at that closely, there's an important word in that scripture. It's the word the. The in our English language is an indefinite article that refers to something or somebody mentioned earlier in the text. And of course, this particular text is talking about Adam. So if the scripture were written another way, it's saying it's not good for Adam to be alone, because Adam was a man who had responsibilities and resources.
Right.
So how does that apply? If everybody was meant to be married, would someone who beats women need to be married?
But then in their scripture in the New Testament, please, I'm not even going to try to quote it.
Right.
Where I think it was Paul or John said that it would be better if you were single.
Paul talks about that,
Yeah.
that if you are not able to be faithful and be committed to the married relationship, that you should be single. And so, again, the overall point is, and what people have to understand is, everybody in the church does not have to be married to be complete and to be of service to God and to ministry. And Paul, as you mentioned, is an excellent example of that, because Paul is responsible for a majority of writings in the New Testament and was very influential in having the gospel spread. And so he chose a life of singlehood because to follow God was his total passion.
Okay. So how about this? Does a single minister have more time on his hands than a married one? Is that true or false?
It could be both. It just really depends. You have single ministers who have very active careers, who may have careers that may require travel, that may be demanding and work long hours. If you're looking at it from the family aspect, it appears that the single minister may have more time, but depending on the job that that person has, that may or may not be true. But again, depending on perspective, some people may think, well, because he doesn't have a family, he has time to do whatever he wants to do. And that may not necessarily be the case. He or she may have other responsibilities that may consume their time. So that could either be true or false, depending on the individual.
Okay, how about this one? The single minister may be a threat to the married couple.
I think that is false.
You think that's false?
I think that's false. I can't say from the experience of why a single person would be viewed as a threat. I think what can be said is that there may be some jealousy at times towards the single minister, because it is perceived that if he doesn't have family responsibilities, that he has this freedom. And really, that statement is very inaccurate, because if you look at the makeup of the church, most of the programs and most of the offerings in the church are designed for families and married couples. And usually the people that are left out are those who are some version of single, meaning single, divorced, or widowed.
Okay. Another one. The single minister has fewer problems than the married minister.
Not true.
Why is that?
Not true. It depends on how you define problems. If you're looking at it from the family aspect, the married minister may have some difficulty in finances, difficulties with kids. That's acknowledged. But the single minister may have issues with job changes, job layoffs, his or her individual family situation with parents, siblings. So there's no way to say that someone who is single has more problems than someone who is married, because all of us have stuff. So that is an inaccurate statement as well.
Okay, the last one, and this is a doozy.
Okay.
The single minister wants to be married.
I think deep down, most people do want to be married.
Yes, I agree with you.
I think no one wants to go through this life alone and by themselves. However, if that marriage doesn't happen for the single minister, by no means should they be condemned or looked upon as something is wrong with them. It's a matter of finding the right person whom they're equally yoked with, that they can grow with and hopefully worship and serve together.
You know I asked you some really tough questions there. We're going to take a short break because I got even more for you about the single ministers in the church today.
I'm ready.
Okay?
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds.
Hey, I'm Anderson Cooper. As a parent, you want to make sure that your child knows how to deal with bullying when they see it happening. And chances are they want help, but they don't really know how. Well, teach them that the best thing to do is calmly walk away, find a teacher or other adult, and speak up. And do your part. Be that adult they can talk to and trust will listen. Join me to help stop bullying. Go to stopbullying.gov to find out more.
Hi, welcome back to Betty. I'm your host, Cynthia Thompson. I'm here with Alvin Burney. He's been telling me the truth about being a single minister in the church today. Now, Alvin, I asked you some tough questions, and I got even more for you.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
So tell me, do you sense that your peers treat you differently because you're a single minister? Do you think they would treat you differently if you were married?
Are you talking about peers in the workplace or within the church?
Let's do the workplace first.
I think in the workplace, that is somewhat true. I have experienced that personally in my career in terms of working. I think that some people, based on how they were raised, based upon their strict views of family, that because I was single, that I was lacking something or that something was missing. But here's the caveat. That supervisor would put more on my plate because they didn't feel like I had other outside interests to do. So on one side, they may view me that something is wrong, but on the other, they feel like it's an opportunity to give me more responsibility because other team members have families.
So what about in the church? How do you think they view you?
In the church, I think, again, going back to some of the seniors, just because of how seniors interpret Genesis 2:18, I think they look at a single minister as someone who is not complete. And I'll share with you a personal story, Cynthia, that after attending the wedding of a former pastor of mine, that after the wedding, someone told me that my ministry would never be complete until I got married. And that was very hurtful. I left there, was sad, feeling like, does my ministry even matter? And I had to go into some serious prayer that evening to get myself together. But after reading and doing my own study, I was able to put a sermon together that I was able to deliver sometime afterwards to help me release that and dispel that hurt. So yes, even in the church, by people who have strict views on the family structure, I have experienced that pain.
Oh no.
Yes.
So tell me, how do you handle dating being a single minister? Do you tell the young lady that you're a minister of a church, or do you leave that out until after a couple of dates, or do you just tell them up front?
In the past, I've done both. But in terms of handling that, if you are a single male who's a minister, you need to be sure that you ask the young lady plenty of questions in terms of their motive. There was an interesting article in Essence magazine that was published about 7 years ago that talks about the relationship between pastors and female church congregants. What the article was saying is that a lot of our African American churches are filled with members, female members, who may not have had stable households where a father was not present. And so in looking for someone who can be a father figure, the obvious place was the church and the pastor. They forged a relationship with the pastor or minister, but the danger was that sometimes that relationship bordered into a deeper relationship that may have been inappropriate. So as a single minister, you have to ask plenty of questions in regards to motive, because the other caveat too is that there are some women in the church who look forward to being a first lady and will align themselves with someone who they deem might have potential, and instead of aligning themselves with that person because of the liking of that person, they may be attracted to the power or the attention that that male gets as a minister and preaching.
My God.
So you have to ask plenty of questions.
So what are some of the questions that you ask?
Some of the questions that I would ask, okay, what are you looking, where do you see this going? What are your goals and ambitions? Understanding the calling on my life, how do you fit into that, or how could you see yourself fitting into that? Is this something you can handle with all that comes with things I may have to do, places that I may choose not to go that you may recommend? So those are some questions that you really need to get a handle on as a single minister and dating. And if it's a single woman who's dating a male, the biggest thing with males is there are a lot of males who have resentment in the church. Many males are uncomfortable because they see the pastor on the pulpit, they see him driving a nice car to church, tailor-made suit, yet they're struggling with their job and financial situation and trying to put food on the table. And even though the pastor is preaching a great word, they still may resent him. So as a female who's in the ministry, who's single, and if there's a male that they're interested in, they need to gauge those questions as well.
Have you ever gotten caught up in a relationship that turned out, maybe I should not have dated this person?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have had a couple of stalkers in my experience in dating. It was a very uncomfortable situation, and one of my personal recommendations and one of my personal things would be not to date someone who attends the same congregation with which I serve, because if the relationship doesn't go well, it can be quite messy.
Yes. Let's take a short break on that, okay? And we're going to come back. I got more questions for you.
All right.
Men.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who do something, the people who take action, are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers. Right now.
Oh, those boys are much too much. Those boys are much too much. We got the spirit. We're hot. We can't be stopped. We got the spirit. We're hot. We can't be stopped. We're gonna beat them and bust them.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life.
Let's get a little bit rowdy. R-O-W-D-Y.
Take time to be a dad today. Call or visit fatherhood.gov to learn more.
Hey, welcome back to Betty. I'm your host, Cynthia Thompson. I'm here with Alvin, and he is really sharing a lot of information about being a single minister. My God, I did not know all this stuff happened. But I guess with any organization, there's a little bit of drama, right?
Yes. Yes.
So, do you think that people in the African American community will start accepting single ministers? Because you said they mostly like to have a married minister in the church.
I hope so. If we talk about what God's purpose was and his ministry was and the ministry of Jesus Christ, it didn't exclude anyone.
This is true.
There is a place for everyone in the kingdom, especially single folks. Married folks add something special and dynamic to the kingdom, but single people within your congregation can really help your congregation flourish and can help your congregation in ways you can't imagine. And if there's a church that's providing a great ministry that will attract singles, it can do nothing but have positive benefits.
So what advice would you give a single minister that's starting out? Because you've been in the ministry for a while, so you've been through some things already.
Yes.
So what would you tell this young person?
I would tell this young person, stay focused on what your calling is, whatever your assignment is in ministry, preaching, teaching, missions. Find out what that is, be focused on that. Be a normal person, but understand that people may not see you as normal, that people may draw misconceptions about you, but be a normal person. And again, with the dating piece, make sure you align yourself with somebody who can enhance and help you instead of hurt you. You will only know that if you ask plenty of background questions around motive and purpose.
So Alvin, I don't have this question on my list, but I was just wondering, do you think that single women ministers have the same problems that as single male ministers?
I think single women ministers' problems are more intense because with males, among especially African American males, there's a lot of resentment towards the church. There's a lot of resentment toward maybe the pastor because, again, of financial situations. In the recent depression that we had over the past several years with the economic downturn, a lot of manufacturing jobs were lost.
Right.
A lot of those jobs were male dominated. So many males, instead of maybe turning to the church, attending church more, they're wondering what to do about their job situation, how to maintain their household. And so I think with single female ministers, in terms of a male counterpart, I think it's even tougher for them.
So Alvin, we've been talking about single ministers, and you are a single minister right now.
Yes.
Do you have something you want to share with us?
Yes.
Okay.
I am newly engaged to a wonderful young lady, and so I'll be getting married next year. And so I tell everybody in terms of how that will affect my view and my ministry is that everybody before they were married, they were single.
Right.
So hopefully as a married person, I would have great stuff to impart to someone who may be a single minister.
So you think that your being single first will help the newly single minister coming up? You could share your
Absolutely,
experiences
absolutely,
with them?
because I've been single for a while. I mean, I've never been married, and I'm 41 years old. I don't mind sharing my age, so that's a long time to be single. But I've seen a lot in those years, so there are a lot of pearls of wisdom that can be passed along.
How do you think your getting married soon is going to impact the singles in your church right now after you get married?
I think it's going to be a blessing for them, because my fiance is older, a little bit older than I am, and so both of us can share different perspectives on singlehood. She's always served in the church, and I think our story, everything comes together that we can have a powerful testimony that can help singles, whether they're single lay people or single ministers in the church. So it'll be a powerful ministry that we could have.
It will be. One last question. I promise this is the last one. Do you have any lasting words for my viewers that may be single and are thinking about going into the ministries, but they're holding off doing it because they are still single? What would you say to that person?
I would say to that person, continue to be in prayer about that. And remember, despite your marital status, God has something powerful for you. If you are indeed called by Him and you are called to do things in ministry, go forth. God knows your heart's desire, and if you stay prayerful, everything will work out. Don't let your marital status hinder what your calling is, because the kingdom needs whatever it is that you're called to provide.
Wow, that was powerful. Oh my God, thank you for being on my show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my God, this was really great, Alvin.
I hope it's helpful, and that will help somebody who may be in the midst of the struggle.
I think it will. And I want to thank each and every one of you for joining my show, A Better You, here on Public Access 21 every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Thank you so much, Alvin.